Speaking Task 1. You will be asked a question about a familiar topic. You will then have 15 seconds to prepare your response, and 45 seconds to speak.
Do you prefer to work under pressure or to have a relaxed environment at work? Provide concrete examples to support your view.
Prepare your response after the beep. Start speaking after the beep.
I prefer a relaxed environment at work. In my experience, a relaxed environment fosters innovation, creativity, and encourages open communication among employees. When people feel comfortable, they are more likely to share ideas, collaborate, and ask for feedback. In addition, job stress and pressure can have severe health consequences, including burnout. That being said, I understand occasional time-driven projects do create mild pressure, and that amount is manageable and can even increase productivity to a certain level.
Speaking Task 2. You will read a short paragraph and then listen to a conversation between two people. You will have 50 seconds to read the paragraph. After, you will get a question about what you read and heard. You will have 30 seconds to prepare your response and then 60 seconds to give it. You have 50 seconds to read. Start reading after the beep. Now listen to the conversation between two people.
What on earth is the university thinking?
Huh? What do you mean?
Well, those buildings aren't just used for classes. That's where my evening study group usually meets.
Oh, of course, that's true. But you could go to the library instead.
Yeah, but the library only has a few rooms that people can use for group meetings, which is why classrooms have been so convenient. But now, if it's winter and cold, where can we go?
Right. In the middle of winter? Forget it. Or even if it's just kind of cold out.
It'd be pretty unpleasant.
Oh, but still, they obviously have to do something about the situation.
Oh, I agree. They have to do something, but they should find a solution that isn't so disruptive, to academics no less.
Such as?
Well, for one, if they replaced all those old windows. They're so drafty. They let the cold in, and if they insulated the buildings better. These are really old buildings. Charming, but
not at all energy efficient. Yeah, you're probably right.
There are some really basic improvements they could make that'd make a huge difference in the long term, that could solve the problem and still leave us somewhere to study.
The woman expresses her opinion about the plan described in the article. State her opinion and explain the reason she gives for holding the opinion.
Prepare your response after the beep. Start speaking after the beep.
The woman does not agree with the university's plan to lower the temperature in classroom buildings during weekends and weekdays after 5 p.m. She believes that this plan would disrupt her evening study group, as they usually meet in those buildings. She argues that going to the library is not a good alternative because there are only a few rooms available for group meetings. Additionally, she mentions that the cold weather would make it unpleasant to study outside during winter or even when it's just a little cold. Instead, she suggests that the university should make basic improvements to the buildings, such as replacing old windows and improving insulation, which would solve the problem in the long term and still provide students with a place to study.
Speaking Task 3. You will read a short paragraph about an academic topic, then listen to a lecture about it. You will have 50 seconds to read the paragraph. After, you will get a question about what you read and heard. You will have 30 seconds to prepare your response and then 60 seconds to give it. You have 50 seconds to read. Start reading after the beep. Now listen to the lecture.
It is difficult to define social cognition, but for the most part, it refers to the process of perceiving and understanding the other people and how we see the world around us. The mental processes we are talking about are involved in perceiving, remembering, and thinking about our social world. Social cognition is really important to us in order to be a functioning member of a society. Social cognition can vary from culture to culture, so we need to be in tune with our own environment in order to give good signals that we understand and that we will act accordingly. One example of this could be how we interpret a smile. In some cultures, when another member of society smiles at us, we could understand that as them showing interest in us, that they would want us to approach and start a conversation, and we could choose to do so. Whereas in another culture, a smile could be something that is required in any social occasion. So seeing it on someone else's face could simply mean that they are being polite and nothing else. So just smiling back would be an appropriate response. Physical contact is another thing we need to look at. In some places, physical contact in an everyday setting might be a sign of dominance and aggression. In such cultures, there is a lack of it. When a member of this society feels it, they think that they might need to fight or retreat. But in other cultures, physical contact is abundantly present and is a sign of affection and friendship. In these environments, a hand on the shoulder or a strong tap on the back might be an indicator of friendly intentions and not hostile ones, whereas in the previously mentioned culture, it would be perceived as an attack.
Explain the concept of social cognition that the professor talks about. Use points and examples from the lecture.
Prepare your response after the beep. Start speaking after the beep.
Social cognition is about how we understand and perceive others and the world around us. It helps us interact with society in a meaningful way. For example, in some cultures, a smile may indicate friendliness and a desire to communicate, while in others it may simply be a polite gesture. Physical contact can also have different meanings in different cultures. It may signal aggression in one culture, but affection in another. Understanding these cultural differences is essential for effective communication and social interaction. Social cognition involves processes of perception, memory, and thought that shape our interactions with others. The way we interpret social cues and behaviors can vary greatly from one culture to another, so it is important to be aware of these differences in order to navigate society effectively.
You will listen to a lecture about an academic topic. After, you will get a question about what you heard. You will have 20 seconds to prepare your response and then 60 seconds to give it. Now listen to the lecture.
Authors of fiction, short stories and novels, of course have many decisions to make when they are writing their works. One of those decisions is how they are going to narrate or tell the story, what perspective or what point of view the story will be told from. So authors need to choose a type of narrator, some person or voice to tell the story, and this narrator can affect the reader's experience when they read a story. Now, the author might choose to have an objective narrator. An objective narrator can describe what people, the characters in a story, what they do and what they say, but that's about all. So, suppose we have a story, for example, that is about a man and woman about to take a trip. When a story is told by an objective narrator, the only information that we get as readers is what the characters say to each other, what they do. They get on the train, they sit down, they look out the window, that's all. And this leaves questions that force the reader to interpret the events, to fill in information, and decide what the character's conversation and actions might mean. Another kind of narrator an author might use is an omniscient narrator. In this case, the narrator, the voice that is telling the story, knows everything, and I mean everything about the characters. So let's imagine our same man and woman traveling, but described by an omniscient narrator. Not only do we, the readers, know what they do and say, but we also know what they're thinking. For example, we are told that the couple is going to visit an old friend of the man's, and we learn what the man is thinking, that he is nervous because he hasn't seen his friend in a long time, that he is worried if his wife will like the friend. So an omniscient narrator provides more information and answers questions that the reader might have about the characters or the action.
Using the examples from the lecture. Discuss two types of narrators that an author of fiction might use.
Prepare your response after the beep. Start speaking after the beep.
In the lecture, the speaker talks about two different types of narrators that authors can use in their stories. The first type is an objective narrator, who only describes what the characters do and say without giving any extra information. For example, in a story about a man and woman on a trip, an objective narrator would only tell us that they get on a train and look out the window. This leaves us to interpret the events and understand the characters' actions on our own. The second type is an omniscient narrator, who knows everything about the characters, including their thoughts and feelings. In the same story, an omniscient narrator would tell us that the man is nervous about seeing his friend. So, these two types of narrators can give readers different perspectives and help them understand the story in different ways.